Picture this. There's this highly specific, kinda surreal moment in your financial life when you walk into your bank and the teller suddenly stops calling you sir or ma'am out of strict corporate policy and just starts calling you by your first name out of genuine interest. Now, it's the exact same you, right? You've got the same haircut, you're wearing the same wrinkled shirt, and you probably did the same terrible parallel parking job right out front. The only thing that actually changed is a number on a screen that they can see. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're mapping out the invisible lines of wealth. We're diving into the three very distinct net worth levels where the entire world, institutions, banks, and honestly, even your own family, completely rearranges itself around you.
I really want you to think about that exact moment. When exactly does a massive bank stop treating you like a policy, just an account number to be managed, and start treating you like a total VIP with invisible wealth privileges? Because here's the secret that absolutely nobody tells you about building wealth. The money itself is almost boring. What's wild, what is truly fascinating to watch, is how the actual rules of society shift as you cross these specific thresholds. Relatives you haven't heard from in literally years suddenly reach out. Banks suddenly assign you a personal human advisor. But before we climb this ladder, we really need to shatter a massive illusion about where you probably stand right now. Okay, let's look at a number that might actually bother you a bit. The median net worth of an American household is about $192,900. That means the middle half of all families have less than that. But the average is roughly $1,063,700. The average is literally more than 5 times the median. How on earth is that mathematically possible? Well, it's because a tiny, tiny group of absurdly wealthy people at the very top yanks the average upward. It's like a kid hanging off a curtain rod. So when you read some flashy headline saying the average American has over $1 million, your brain instantly goes, well, I'm clearly failing. You aren't. Actually, scratch that, you're absolutely not. The average is a fairy tale, the median is the real story here.
And that brings us to our very first milestone on the wealth ladder. Level 1, the first $100,000.
Now look, I know 100 grand isn't buying you a mega yacht. In some cities today, it's barely a down payment on a standard house. But this is the absolutely crucial first line you cross where things genuinely shift, taking you straight out of that financially fragile group of folks living paycheck to paycheck. The late Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime business partner, and honestly one of the sharpest financial minds in history, had this incredibly blunt quote about this milestone. He said, the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. And he meant it literally. If you have to walk absolutely everywhere and not eat a single thing that wasn't bought with a coupon, you just find a way to get your hands on $100,000. Because after that, you can finally ease off the gas a little bit. But why? Why would a billionaire obsess over a number that, to him, was literally a rounding error?
Well, the secret is the brutal, beautiful math of compounding. Money doubles on a schedule, and that schedule depends only on your rate of return, not on how much money you already have. The rule of 72 is a fantastic little shortcut for this. You just take the number 72 and divide it by your annual return rate. So at a standard 7% return, which is a pretty standard long-term market assumption, your money doubles roughly every 10 years. But here is where it gets slightly cruel. That 10-year doubling time is identical, whether you have $100 or $100 million. But the actual dollars it spits out, they're vastly different. At 7%, your $100,000 earns you about $7,000 in a year. That's, a decent used car. But $1 million at that exact same 7% earns $70,000 a year. That is literally more than the median American makes at a full-time job for doing absolutely nothing. And $5 million? That earns $350,000 a year while you are asleep. The percentage is the same, the effort is the same, the only thing that changed is the size of the snowball. That is exactly why the first 100 grand feels like pushing a broken car uphill in the rain, and the second million just feels like the universe is handing you free cash.
And this is exactly where the institutions finally start to notice you. Just barely, but they do. Once you hit this $100,000 mark in real savings, a massive bank like Bank of America will quietly start changing your actual pricing. You unlock better card rewards, you get discounts on auto loans, they even knock money off your mortgage rate. Now, they aren't rolling out the red carpet for you just yet, they've basically just unlocked a slightly nicer waiting room. But it is the very first time the corporate machine looks at your number and decides, okay, you are worth being a little nicer to.
So let's move right along to our next major threshold. Level 2, the millionaire shift.
Think back to the very first time a loan officer barely even looked up at you and just gave you a hard no. Well, at the $1 million mark, the total opposite becomes the default. It's this mostly silent shift happening entirely behind closed doors, where the system quietly stops charging you the poor person tax. But before we get too carried away here, we need a quick reality check. Using financial planner Bill Bengen's famous 4% rule, which basically says you can pull 4% of your portfolio a year and have it last a standard retirement, $1 million today generates about $40,000 a year, forever-ish. Now, 40 grand a year for doing absolutely nothing is wonderful. You never have to panic about a surprise car repair ever again, but notice what it's not. It is comfortable, for sure, but it is not private jet money. You are definitely not lighting cigars with $100 bills.
And this brings up a really crucial reframe. When your parents or your grandparents talk about millionaires like they were these literal gods walking the earth, they aren't crazy. In their dollars, a millionaire really was wildly rich. But inflation moved the bar on us. $1 million in 1990 has the buying power of about $2.5 million today. Even the giant Swiss bank UBS, which actually counts the 23.8 million U.S. millionaires for a living, openly admits that the classic $1 million threshold is pretty outdated.
But socially, institutionally, this is where the treatment drastically changes. And honestly, it actually starts a bit before the $1 million mark if we look at liquid cash. Around $150,000 in liquid assets with a bank like Chase, you unlock private client status. You are officially upgraded from a random account number to an actual human being. You get dedicated human advisors, random fees are just waved away like they never even existed, and you get free global ATM access. You are suddenly a person they would be genuinely sad to lose.
But here is the ultimate wealth cheat code. This completely rewires how you should understand level 2 wealth. The rich don't get rich and then spend their money. No way. They get rich and then they borrow against their money so they never actually have to sell it. It's called a securities-backed line of credit. Instead of selling stocks to buy something, which triggers taxes and stops your compounding gold, you go to the bank and borrow against your portfolio at tiny interest rates. It's kind of like a financial Schrodinger's cat. You get to spend your savings, but your savings are still fully invested.
Just look at the exact math that JP Morgan uses in its own marketing. Let's say you have a $10 million portfolio and you need $3 million in cash. If you sell the stock, you're left with $7 million invested. But if you borrow the $3 million instead, all $10 million stays invested and keeps growing. Even after paying $58,000 in interest on the loan, because your larger pile kept compounding, you actually come out roughly $148,000 ahead. That is literally 31% more money for the simple crime of just being wealthy enough to borrow instead of sell. This right here, this is the VIP lane of the financial system. Now we escalate to the absolute pinnacle tier, level 3, freedom money. This level hits somewhere between $5 million and $10 million. This is the level everyone fantasizes about. It's the moment your boss says something totally unreasonable, and instead of just swallowing it, you can lean back and realize, I do not actually need this job. $5 million at that 4% rule generates $200,000 a year without you lifting a single finger. Work is permanently optional, and because you negotiate from a place of total calm and can't be leveraged or scared, people weirdly treat you with way more respect. This is also where the financial system rolls out the actual red carpet. I'm talking about the velvet rope invitation-only institutions. JP Morgan Private Bank wants a minimum of $10 million just to talk. Goldman Sachs Private Wealth is right around the same. And if you want to feel genuinely small, there are ultra-tier firms built solely for families worth $200 million and up. Entire teams of brilliant professionals whose only job is managing money for people richer than your whole town. Look, only about 1.6% of American households even crack $10 million. You are a statistical rounding error, in the best possible way.
But we have to pivot here. Let's talk about the dark side of wealth. We need to get real for a second, because I have to tell you about a reality that those financial gurus posing next to rented Lamborghinis on social media will literally never mention to you. At this level, people absolutely start treating you differently, and a lot of it is incredibly toxic. There's an actual clinical term for what happens to people who come into serious money quickly: sudden wealth syndrome. It comes with real, heavy symptoms: guilt, paranoia, isolation, and this strange decision paralysis. The second word gets out that you've hit this wealth level, people just materialize. An old cousin you haven't seen since 2014 suddenly has a can't-miss business opportunity. Charities, salesmen, old friends, they absolutely deluge you. Relatives come out of the woodwork, and the money can actually begin to destroy your existing social reality.
And we see these hazards everywhere, right? A famous study of Florida lottery winners found that a sudden windfall didn't actually save people from bankruptcy, it just delayed it. The money dropped onto a life not built to hold it, and it just leaked right out. But honestly, worse than that is the crab bucket mentality. If you put crabs in a bucket and one tries to climb out, the others instinctively drag it right back down. People do this too, out of deep-seated resentment. There is a Japanese proverb that warns, "The nail that sticks out gets hammered down." The very same wealth that earns you that VIP respect from bankers will very often cost you the ability to fully trust the people who knew you before.
Which leads us to the final hurdle, the fourth trap, moving goalposts.
This invisible trap sits quietly underneath all three of these wealth levels. It's the real reason why hitting level 1, level 2, or even level 3 rarely actually feels like you've won. Data from a recent Charles Schwab survey shows Americans now say it takes $2.5 million just to be considered wealthy. The number just keeps climbing. The person with $1 million looks up at the person with $2.5 million and feels poor. The person with $2.5 million looks at the person with $10 million and feels poor. Your brain gets used to your new net worth level in just about a month, and then it quietly demands the next one. The goalposts don't just move. They literally sprint away from you at the exact speed you approach them.
So, I want to leave you with this question to genuinely challenge you. What is your personal enough number? The entire point of understanding these levels isn't to make you feel behind. It's to let you watch the machine actually work so you can stop measuring your worth against invisible lines designed to make you feel like you never arrived. The people who actually win this game are the ones who radically decide on purpose what enough means for them. And then, and honestly this is the hardest part, they actually stop when they hit it. Don't let the number on the screen or a bank teller's reaction control you. Decide your number, build a life the crabs in the bucket can't touch, and win your own game.